why get diagnosed in your 30s or 40s or even 60s or beyond? And
Yeah.
it's not about coveting a label. It's not about attention. It's about trying to not hate yourself.
Hi, I'm KJ Aiello, and welcome to Season 2 of The Book Hook, where each episode we dig into writing and storytelling that challenges the status quo and examines how authors use their work to resist, to question, and to reimagine our world. No surface level chat, just thoughtful conversations for critical readers like you.
With mental health, it's like, well, you're clearly like not resilient enough, or you're not using these tools. When it's a physical disability, we're not saying like, oh, just try harder.
So get your coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome back to the Book Hook podcast, everybody. I have such a cool guest on today, Julie M. Green, whose debut book, memoir Motherness, a memoir of generational autism, parenthood, and radical acceptance, just came out. I believe it was in the last fall of 2025. It is a stunning, stellar, raw, beautiful, honest read. I recommend it to everybody. Quick intro to Julie here, who, we've been following each other on social media a wee bit, also published by the same publisher, which I think is always cool. Julie M. Green is a writer whose work has been featured in the Washington Post, HuffPost, the Globe and Mail, Today's Parent, Chatelaine, and more. In 2024, she was long listed for the CBC Nonfiction Prize. She has appeared on CTV. Okay, this is a list. This is amazing. CTV, BBC Radio, SiriusXM, CBC Radio, and HuffPost Live. She also writes The Autistic Mom on Substack. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
I'm excited. I was so excited to talk to you today. I finished reading Motherness a couple of days ago, and it took me a wee bit to get through it, simply because there was so much honesty. It's very raw, and there's so much to dig into that after every sort of, I call it more pivotal scenes or mic drop moments for me. I had to step back and be like, okay, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to digest this properly and give it the space I think it needs in my head. So diving in here, you've written a lot about parenting and autism and the intersection between those. At what point did you realize that, hey, I've got a whole book here?
Yeah, it's great. It's sort of crazy. At one point I did step away and go, it's not that it's not a lot of work, but I was like, golly, like I've probably written like 50 essays already. And I think it's more the case of thinking, is there something cohesive here that is a book project? Because, as you know, like memoir is not just like, well, this happened in my life, and this happened, and this happened, because that's a diary. So it's to, I think, eventually get to the point where you're like, okay, this is actually something more cohesive, and also a story that might need to be out there, and a story that I hadn't seen. At least I'd read a lot of memoirs by autistic advocates sort of in their 20s, 30s, or a lot of parents who were kind of with autistic kids who were talking about that angle of things. But I had not really read anything that kind of married the two. And also that, I don't think things are necessarily sanitized, but there was, I also sort of felt like, what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be, like you say, very raw and very honest. And otherwise, to me, there's just no point doing it. So yeah, eventually, I guess it became a book idea, because there were a few essays that had been previously published, but they were completely overhauled and obviously become part of the bigger project that is the memoir. And then, like, structurally, you obviously, that's the big thing, we have to find the container. I call it the container. I don't know why. Maybe I've read that somewhere. Maybe it's not mine. I'm picking it. Yeah, maybe I'm picking up on it, but you can use it, because I don't even think it was mine. But it's to find like that structure where it's all going to hang together. And that's how I ended up doing these sort of parallel scenes with my coming of age, basically, into adulthood, and comparing and contrasting with my son's first 13 years and, how autism looks for him, because there's definite similarities, but there are obviously vast differences. But yeah, that became the structure to get it.
And there is
together.
A lot of journalistic elements in it as well. It is sort of like this mishmash of personal narrative. And you do have, I love this switch of POV from first to third person. which really landed me in your head, in your experience. And that occurred throughout the book, throughout your lifetime. And I thought that was really well done. But blending the journalism, the research with the personal narrative, I found to be very strong and I think the word for it is compelling, particularly as somebody, there are autistic folks in my life, but somebody who, I'm not autistic myself. I don't have close connections with autistic people, and learning about this, having that personal narrative, I think was really, really impactful. And then also, people also want to know the research. People also want to hear these things backed up too. So I'm wondering, where's my question here? This is one of the things that I start talking and then I'm like, I have a question in there somewhere. How were you able to parse through all of the research, all of the information that is out there, and marry the two together with your own personal narrative and your son's narrative? That's a huge question. I feel like we could take all day.
Yeah, like I love the idea. Like you said, I think they're like, that's the hot thing right now, is to have these hybrid things, because I think if it's strictly reported, it feels kind of boring. But if it's also just personal, straight up stuff, I mean, I felt like, especially with something like autism, you don't know where people are coming at with the book. I
Yeah.
didn't want to just write it for people who already know this world inside and out.
Yeah.
So it was important for me to add a bit of context, but the difficulty was autism research and autism knowledge is always evolving. And as you know, publishing is like the slowest business going. So I did include like a caveat right away. And I kept trying to update my references, and like every time I'd get something, but it could drive you crazy. I have so many references in the book, but I was also like thinking, there's going to be like this gap of 2 years essentially between, from the time you're working on it to publication date. And I don't want everything I'm talking about to be outdated, but that was kind of the risk. And up until the last minute, I was trying to like finagle and like add things, but I wanted to add enough context so that it would make sense to people outside of this world, but not get like so bogged down and feel too sciencey and dry. But hopefully, and I think, again, once I had that container,
coming back to that.
I keep coming back, because the way I decided, once I knew that I was breaking down each, I guess, chapter or essay or whatever you want to call it, into different topics, that framework kind of made it easier. Like, okay, if this chapter is going to be about sensory differences, then I'm going to have to explain, okay, why do autistic people have these differences in how we process sensory things? Okay, well, we can tell you just a little fun fact about the amygdala and the brain, but then we don't have to get all too into that. And then we can actually show you, and make it a little more literary, and like you said, bring you into like second person, and to actually feel what the experience is like to have sensory overwhelm. So that's kind of how I mapped out each section.
I'm wondering if we go back to the diagnosis, your own diagnosis at, it was later in life, 44, I think you were when you were diagnosed. So, I was late diagnosed as well, not autistic, with bipolar. And I know, like in my own experience and the experience that I've heard from other folks who are diagnosed later in life, there's this, sort of dual feeling of both relief, but also anger. I'm wondering, first of all, how did you come about to get diagnosed? But also, how did that end up feeling for you?
Ooh, yeah, it was such a long, like convoluted process for me. I think that by the time it happened, I didn't even really have the crazy strong emotions, just because it had been like 10 years of processing and just dealing with the immediacy of my son's needs and figuring out frankly, what the heck autism even is and was. But I couldn't be quite so angry. I think some people are a bit annoyed and thinking like, if I'd known this, how might my life have been different? And they're sort of angry at, their caretakers or whatever, or their parents, and, maybe the schools, whatever, people for not knowing. But I was kind of a product of my generation, like the knowledge. I couldn't really blame anybody because the knowledge just wasn't there. So how do you be, how do you be upset even if they had a name and we knew it was autism? Then there wouldn't have been anything for it. Like no one would have done anything, or because people just didn't know what they didn't know. So I try to be a little bit more like zen and graceful about it. Like I know now, and
Mm-hmm.
I can change, moving forward. I can do a lot better for my kid, and I can do a lot better for myself. And I obviously hope and I think things are different for this generation coming up now because we have all the information. Heck, we didn't even have the internet
Yeah.
really. Like all that stuff was nascent when my kid was being diagnosed, let alone
Yeah.
in the dark ages when I was coming up. I mean,
When we were
you
born,
know,
wow.
when
So
there were
long
no
ago.
seatbelts and everyone smoked in the house and everywhere else, like,
Yeah.
there were, like it was just a different time. So I
Mhm.
also just think like regret, it just, I don't know, kind of bogs you down. Like there was definitely, don't get me wrong, there was kind of some sadness, and you do mull over, and you do a lot of postmortem of your past and stuff. But I don't know. For me, I tried not to stay in like a bitter area because it was like the late 70s and 80s. Nothing would have been, you know,
Yeah.
nothing would have been different. And when was Rain Man? Like 87? Like nothing would have, I was already
Yeah.
11 years old by then, like nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So I try to like not, I try to put my energy and spend it in better places, I guess.
So the diagnosis, you said you do better for yourself. What does that look like?
Well, a lot. Honestly, a big game changer was way before I even was diagnosed, is when I kind of made the change. After my kid was young, I got a
Mhm.
job as a staff writer for an online magazine, but it was remote. It was remote in the
Mhm.
days when remote freelancing work didn't even exist.
Mhm.
It wasn't super common anyway. And that was just a game changer for me because prior to that, I was working in offices and I was burnt out and I was sick all the time, to the
Mhm.
point where my employers like thought I was faking it, and I just couldn't. I'd sort of keep down work, but I was not coping in life, and
Right.
I could not figure out why. And then suddenly, just being able to work part time from home, it was like I was a completely different person and different employee. It was like I was super prolific. I still had challenges, but those were then related to the parenting world because, of course, when you have a young kid, suddenly there's all these social things. There's like you have to
Yeah.
go to these birthday parties and these playgrounds and things that are really overwhelming
Yeah.
for on a sensory level and on a social level, and on all the advocacy and just challenges that I had to go through for my son. But on a
Mhm.
personal level, in terms of work, it was just a revelation. So obviously, I've been freelancing ever since then, like 15 years now. And
Mhm.
it's just such a change in my capacity. And obviously, since my diagnosis, I do have a better understanding of, what things trigger me, what I can handle, what I can't handle. I still resent it and I sometimes push against it, but I'll be the one who will be sick, or I'll be in the closet like
Yeah.
having a meltdown or a shutdown, which I've had since I've been diagnosed. It's not perfect. Like your problems, I think that's the illusion. Think, oh, once you get this diagnosis, like, no, all the
It'd be
same
all
stuff
good.
about you is
Yeah.
still there. It's just that like you understand it, and it's you try to manage it a little bit differently. You still, I still take meds. I still have to like treat my anxiety. Like none of those issues go away, but I think the way I think about it, and I think I just view it differently, and I try to have more self-compassion, and I try to just not ignore it and push through things in the
Yeah.
way that I did like all through my 20s and 30s, early 30s,
Yeah. And you had the like sort of the dual challenge of both, your son being autistic, and he presents, from what I understand from Motherness, is that his presentation of autism is quite different than yours. There are
Yeah.
similarities, but there are also stark differences. So, when he was younger, what I read here was that, you're trying so hard to
Yeah.
do, quote unquote, whatever the right thing is as a
Yeah.
parent for a son who is autistic, meanwhile, you're also drowning yourself. And I found those aspects in the memoir to be really, I don't want to say eye opening because I'm not surprised, but I was also, it left me feeling frustrated for you, frustrated with the
Mm-hmm.
system. Also, in a place of, I feel it was a generous telling of your story in that you invited us into your world, into your life, into these struggles that so many parents, mothers particularly, are judged for. And that is something that you write about considerably, is the amount of judgment that was levied on you, particularly from other parents. I don't know if I have a question there, but I don't know. I think that that's something that hopefully your readers will take away from that too, and that this is an incredibly generous narrative that you're giving to us and an insight into your life. What stuck out to me, and I actually want to, I've got them tabbed here closer to the end, and we have a scene here where your son, the aggression is coming out,
Mm-hmm.
which is there's so much stigma around autism and aggression, around mental illness and aggression,
Mm-hmm.
around neurodiversity and aggression, and this stigma that you were feeling around medicating your son, giving him medications. And you wrote, that was before the kicking and screaming, before the broken glass, the smashed plate, before the upturned chair and the shattered vase, before the crying and the wishing to die. That was before my child fell apart before my eyes. What was it like going back to those moments when you were writing this?
Oh yeah. I think it's one of those things like, why do we do this again? No, like on one hand, it was cathartic for me. But I think also there had been a buffer, enough time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
I could never have written any of this even, 5 years earlier. I think you really need the distance. But I think in
Yeah.
some ways going back and really getting deep in it, as you do, because you're in a sense reliving it again. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess in a I don't know, it's cheaper than a therapist, right? But but it truly was like, it was helpful, but I could not have done it any sooner,
Mm-hmm.
while we were still going. So I had enough space, I think, and time put between some of these events. And again, I didn't write about everything. There were a lot
Mm-hmm.
of other difficult things. It was a real, and it's sticky because I want to write my story, but of course, in writing my story, I'm writing about my son, and how the heck do
Yeah.
I do that in a way that's and fair to everybody involved in the book. So I've, beyond changing names, which I changed the names, but I also like really cherry picked what I put in. So I didn't gloss over. I did put in some difficult things. I definitely wanted to talk about aggression. I wanted to taboo things that even within the autism community, like a lot of people aren't talking about.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about it with ADHD because it's so common. Everybody knows you get ADHD, you take meds. Probably the same thing with bipolar. It's a done thing. But when you're talking about antipsychotic medication
Mm-hmm.
and kids who are aggressive like that, people do not. I found even within autism circles, it was just not a
Really?
space that I regularly found. Yeah. And which
Really?
of course just compounds everything, because you're already feeling so shamed. You're already feeling
Yeah.
so isolated. And, loads of people, even within my inner circles, didn't really know what was going on with us then, and have since read the book and felt terrible. And I said, like,
Mm-hmm.
don't feel terrible. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
really
not, it's
even
not about
talk
you.
about it because
Yeah.
no, but it's nice of people to say so,
Yeah.
but again, like I didn't, for my son's sake as well, I did very much cherry pick, and I tried to have levity. I tried to balance it. I tried to not just make it this whole tragedy narrative, because I really didn't want to do that. Because autism is so, like everything, it's so complicated. There are funny moments, there are joyful moments, and my son's so smart and creative, and it's all these things, but it's also been hell. It's also
Mm-hmm.
been the darkest, hardest times. So yeah, I tried to really again, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to paint something balanced.
Yeah.
And I don't also want to say, well, this was a bad teacher and this was a,
Yeah.
we've had a mix of everything. We've had great support from educators and other parents. And we've also had just some truly awful experiences, but that's real life,
Yeah.
So I did try to, as you said,
Yeah.
create a balanced approach in that.
It definitely read like everybody who, came into your life or is still in your life, in your son's life, including you, including the Irish Londoner, which I love the nickname. Everybody is working within the constraints that are given to them. And that also includes the social constraints, the understanding or the lack of understanding. I know that within, mental health, healthcare itself is such a huge barrier, even with the identifier of autism. The barriers are just brutal. And, you're already really tired. By the time you get there to the diagnosis, to the I need treatment, to the, whatever treatment looks like, which is another thing that you dig into in Motherness, which I really appreciated, the complexity of treatment and how treatment can actually do harm as well because of lack of understanding. These are things that like you said, I don't think that people are talking about. And I think that this is the beauty of Motherness and the beauty of the work that you do, is that it brings to light all of these complexities around a family where, two individuals who are both autistic in the family and both dealing with the systemic barriers, as well as the beautiful moments, like you said. And I do think that there was a really great balance in there. The love comes through. The love, there's a lot of love in it. I'm wondering, what has the reception of the book been like for you?
Well, you can attest to this because you're a memoirist, but it's a little weird because I feel, obviously, you write the thing, it's such a private experience, and then obviously then it's just between, you and your editor, and your editor, if you're lucky, you have this great rapport with your editor, which I did, and she really got it. And
we had the same editor, I think. Jen Suk Fong Lee.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
Same
we love
editor.
Jen.
Yeah.
We love you, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
If you're watching, Jen. Anyway, if you're lucky enough to get an editor who really, really gets what you're doing, that's amazing. But there, for me, was still some disconnect that it's going to be out there in the world. And I think suddenly it lands, and it's very, very weird because you'll have random elderly neighbors going, "Oh, I read your book." And then you'll have, your friend's spouse that you don't really know very well go, "Oh, Julie, like, I feel like I know you so well now." So there was like a little bit of, it's almost more cringe for the people in, like, not the closest to you, but this sort of outer circle. It's a little strange for me, but it's what's interesting is it's so gratifying having the people who I guess the target audience, they would call it in the business, when these people start reaching out to you going, "Oh my God, I've never read anything that has really," obviously the details of our lives are so different, but it felt like you were speaking my truth, or whatever, as they say. I've lived, and this is the first time I've read something like that. Or people telling you like they cried, and I always feel a bit strange, like, "Sorry for making you cry."
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was kind of the point.
Yeah, but I'm like, hey, if I make you laugh, that's good. Jen's like, "You made me laugh," and that's like an achievement.
That's a good one.
lot.
Yeah, Jen says that.
So yeah. So like that's really cool, but it's also a little bit surreal. And I like, logically, I knew that I was putting all this stuff into the world, but I don't know, you don't really think about it until suddenly you have slightly random, people coming up to you in the grocery store or whatever.
It is strange. Yeah. I had to come to the
But
realization.
good strange, right?
It is a good strange. And I think the last event I went to, I had to come to this realization, be like, oh, they're saying that they know me, and that is a wonderful thing for them. That is wonderful, because I have given this to them. So I have to lean into that. And I have social anxiety and agoraphobia. Do not come up to me and say, "I know you so well," and I will just hide. I will hide.
Well, and it's, you know what? It's such a misnomer. Like, that is a testament that obviously you've done something right in the writing where it's like,
Yeah.
remove this barrier and there feels like this intimacy. But, people need to realize when someone writes memoir, like, these little snapshots of things
Yeah.
that they've curated and carefully
Yeah.
presented to you. You don't actually have a relationship with the
Yeah.
person and you don't really know their lives. Like these sort of little facets of their lives.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
And on the topic of curation, though, I'm interested, I had my own experience while writing my memoir. How did you decide to put in what you did and to leave out? Because I know that there's stuff that went on the chopping on the floor
yeah.
that got chopped. I know that this is how it works. But how did you determine what of the personal narrative to put in, what to leave out?
Oh boy. It's tough because it's not like I wrote scenes that got cut. I like have the opposite problem to every other writer. I'm like an underwriter. I'm like it was like Jen would say, this is great, but you got to flesh it. I
More.
had to flesh out
Mm-hmm.
in certain areas. So it's not really that I overshared and then drew back and went, oh, actually, I'm not going to share that. Yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Again, once I knew that each thing would be about a certain topic, but also I had that cutting off point at like when my son was 13. So it cut
Yeah.
off to a certain point. So obviously anything after that naturally would not go. And just certain things that I thought might harm his dignity in
Mm-hmm.
some other way, even though, clearly I am saying there was aggression, but I still tried to handle things in a way that wouldn't potentially, bite him or bite anybody else later
Yeah.
on. And if anything, I gave myself a hard time too. I tried to be fair to people who maybe didn't know better at the time. I think if you go in writing memoir with like a vendetta or something, it
You
just
can't
leaves
do
a
it.
bad taste. And I think the reader, like everybody knows it. And
Yeah.
it's not, I don't know, it's not good work,
Yeah.
I think.
You're
So,
writing too close to when it happened.
yeah,
That's what I
that could
find.
be it too, for sure. For sure. Life is complex, like there aren't like heroes and villains. It's not Marvel. Like people, like you said, people do the best they can in the moment, and
Mm-hmm.
we're the product of our times too, and what people knew about autism and how we were told to parent autism was so different. And now, so you're also, yeah, you're the product of your time, but also people, I like to think, yeah, maybe that is too generous, maybe behind the scenes I'm like, oh, that, yeah, I won't
I
say,
mean,
I won't say bad words on here, but
it's
let's
okay.
just
We
say
do all the time.
at the time when you're going through it, like there have been people, in the circle where I've had nicknames for certain people, and but you have to
Yeah.
still advocate and be professional. And when you're in the thick of it, it's a little different. But yeah, I think when you can take that step back and look at the bigger picture, you tend to, yeah, hopefully extend a little bit of grace to other people and to yourself, and
Yeah.
just to view things like a more rounded picture of the events that happened.
I found I had to dig in, and this, like, I'm hearing a similar thing here too with you, is that I had to really dig in to find why do people do what they do in an objective, coming at it in an objective way, but also finding the compassion and empathy for people who may have behaved poorly. Right. And I was reading, I don't know if you felt similarly when you were writing Motherness and approaching some of these. I mean, there's obviously some people did some kind of, I'll do it for you, kind of shitty things. And it's hard to go back on them knowing that these people did shitty things that impacted you, impacted your son, but also coming at it with this compassion and with this empathy and understanding why people do what they do, the tools that they were given, what they were taught. And while, yes, their behaviors or actions are their fault, there is an aspect to it that is also not their fault. And I think you did that very well in this book. And I heard a lot of, and I teach this to my students in my nonfiction class, there is author as in the authority, as in somebody who can actually step back and deliver this story, this narrative that is so personal, but also with a level of authority in order to be able to dig into those emotions, to be able to carry a fully formed narrative that isn't skewed one way or another. It just gives it as it is and the human behavior behind it. And my point being, going off on a tangent here, I think
That's
that you
good.
did that really well.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was my point. So you could
It's
teach my
hard
class.
too because
So hard.
sometimes it's, like the classic example was my grandmother, because I absolutely loved her, but she said some of the worst things to me in my life. But I think that makes, say their characters, but from a narrative point of view, people are very messy, but that also makes them more interesting and true to life. Again, with the villain thing, like, and the only thing I did was I probably put my husband a little bit too high on the pedestal. Everyone's like, oh, someone said to me recently, like, where do I need to go to Ireland to like get one of these, do I have to go to London or Ireland? I got to get myself one of these I was like, no, like, we're good together, but no, like maybe I slightly colored, like painted him a little too perfect.
I'm getting the goods now, Julie.
And he's like, what's wrong with that? I told him that the other day. I'm like, he's like, yeah, so what's wrong with that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I did put something probably very similar with my husband in my book too. People are like, oh, he's such a saint.
We want to
like,
stay together.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, is that, you don't know the idiot things he does every now and then.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Of course.
I want to dive into, and this is just my own, not personal curiosity, but one of the things that I've always been really interested in and advocate for is women being misdiagnosed. And it's just across the board with, different mental illnesses, different disorders, different spectrums, identified as autistic. And you yourself, first of all, I know that there is this psychological, what is it, like a tool called masking. And I know people are talking about it everywhere now. I'm wondering if you can explain to us what masking is and how it's impacted you, and how, I know that you said you're being more authentic, more true to yourself. Where is that masking now for you?
Ooh, what's really weird is a lot of the times I'm not really putting myself into the same situations. It was definitely very school-based and performative. And I think this is often a girl-women thing too, that there's a lot of pleasing and there's a lot of not disrupting. So I was whereas with boys who are autistic, often it is so much more visible, like ADHD, I guess, that, they're the ones, they're like disrupting the class or whatever. Whereas with girls, it flies under the radar because I was very much pleasing, deferring to what everybody else wants, trying to watch what everybody else did, say, so I didn't say or do anything weird, because then you'd be bullied or ridiculed. So it was like second guessing everything. And like it would still happen, if someone didn't text me back or right away, I think, or I'd often do these, what did I say? Did I say this?
Yeah.
And like policing everything I've said and going through every word I've said in a conversation, and not even thinking for a minute, well, that person might be busy or, or just trying to think, like, yeah, especially in group settings, I think it would really come out, but I'm rarely in, honestly, group social settings. But I have noticed, that, yeah, there's this like self-consciousness, like this sort of thing is great, right? It's very relaxed. I'm at home. I've been doing lots of podcasts, which really, but if you put me in a different setting and I was having to do this sort of performance thing, I've noticed I've started to get like tics and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's it. A lot of people are like, she doesn't seem autistic at all. Like she's articulate. She's like,
What does that look
but if
like?
I was in a different situation too, like suddenly
Yeah.
eye contact would be a lot harder. Like a computer is a different thing. It's to do with stress and comfort level. And it's all I've learned is about nervous system regulation, really, which is often why I would get overwhelmed and get sick. And I couldn't figure out why is this, but it's like kind of a psychosomatic thing. So all that stress would turn into like a physical illness. So for me, a lot of that masking stuff was showing up, I guess, in a corporate environment or a school environment. And I live a quite small, safe existence now. So I'm rarely put into situations where I really have to, it's not conscious faking, but it's just, it's a real self-conscious layer where, yeah, you're questioning everything you say or do. How are you holding your body? You're not really consciously doing it, but you're copying, for instance, what other girls would do, or I would like what they liked, even if I didn't, because I wanted to be included and invited. And sometimes you'd get things wrong, you'd dress weird, or you'd say something weird, and then of course, the mean girl stuff would take over. And luckily, like I, comparatively to some autistic people, I didn't have like the worst bullying. I had like kind of very like bullying light, I would call it. I had some incidences, but mostly because I was so shy and so mute and so deferential to everyone that there was like, I was just a mirror pretty much. So it's like, who would bully that? I'm showing you everything you want to see and flattering people almost. So I did have friends. And again, these are all things why it's so hard to pick up in girls. But, sometimes if you're seeing that sensitivity and stuff that's turning inward, where someone's shutting down or they're getting sick, or, it could be that it's not just shyness, like, or that mutism. And, but again, none of this stuff was known. And I was an only child as well. So anything I did that looked really fussy or demanding, like if plans changed, if there was a transition or something, I was told something would happen and then it didn't, and I would lose my mind. That was just, well, you're a spoiled brat, basically. You're used to getting your own way. So it was all like just the context of it. Now, like I see it differently and understand it. And I still have like, what's the plan? What's the plan? I always need to know the plan. My husband's like, really the opposite, like, don't even ask me the plan. He's ADHD. He's like, I don't even want I don't want the plan. So it is kind of amazing that because in some ways we are just polar opposites. So like, I need to know the plan in order to not have this crazy anxiety. So anyway, it all works out in the end. But yeah, now I think just I orchestrate so much of my life a certain way that really the amount of masking I have to do is at a minimum. I think largely any conformist environment that people are in is where you're really going to see, particularly kids, feel like they have to conform and mask. And it sucks because it really does a number on your mental health. It does a number on your physical health. Autistic women have, I have to do the actual research on this because I don't think it's in the book, but we have a really elevated levels of physical ailments as well, like more inflammatory diseases and different health conditions that are way, way above the norm. And again, the research hasn't done too much looking into this, but I would just suspect it's like, the pressure of the chronic stress on the nervous system to explain this, particularly in women. Girls and women, particularly because we tend to mask, I think, more than boys. Some boys, for instance, my son, I don't think can mask. He's who he is. So it's definitely, you spend a few minutes or something with him, or seconds, depending how knowledgeable people are, and you'll know right away, like he's quirky or whatever. Like he's speaking, so it's not as obvious instantly, but probably within. But whereas I can fly under the radar because also I have got coping mechanisms developed and finely tuned over, 40 plus years. So you may notice some quirks, but by and large, you may not. And you may just think, even people who've known me may have just thought that's Julie, but and not have tied it into, because I have all these things are the same, I still have all these sort of issues, but now just they're like, it makes sense because they're all kind of related to this bigger piece. So it's rather like, why is this? Why am I weird in that way? Why am I doing this? Because there's like elements of kind of compulsive or obsessive traits as well. And it's like, where did that fit in? Or is that just Julie being Julie? Or is it, now we know there is some commonality among particularly girls and women with kind of a certain profile. There's variability as well, obviously. Some girls
not
and
a
women
monolith.
yeah, do present more in like a classic, typical, like almost masculine way. But no, a lot of this now I understand relates to kind of a, you know, a bigger thing at play.
There is the
So,
question too, and I can't remember what podcast that you were on. You may have to fill in the blank here. I may just have to be like, I'm sorry
mhm.
to whoever original podcaster was that you did. But you had said something about like you cannot extricate the autism from the individual. They would not be the same
Mm,
person entirely, and I think that's and I'm self-inserting here again because I do feel like there are a lot of commonalities in how the world perceives us. I live with serious mental illness. You are autistic. Your son's autistic. The world sees us in a particular way. I've been asked a couple of times if you could have a cure for bipolar, would you take it? And I said, well, then who am I then? Because this has defined my life. This is also an integral part of my personality. And you'd said something similar, and I think it was in regards to your son. And I'm wondering,
yeah.
where's my question there, Julie? Because there's so many things that you've said, like in the book and in other interviews, that I'm like, I just had like aha moments. I was like,
Yeah, that's
she
okay.
gets it. She gets it. I'm trying to
Yeah,
relate to you. Is
it's
what I'm saying.
hard. No, it's good. I like that this is like and more organic. It's not question answer
Yeah.
question. It's like an organic thing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that we have these parallels because it does make it like more interesting for me to talk to
Yeah.
you as well than some. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have said like it's who would he be? It's like as
Yeah.
integral to him as the color of his eyes or his hair color or the fact that
Yeah.
someone's left-handed or I mean left-handed, right-handed, who cares? But
Yeah.
but it is an integral thing. I mean, would I like to take away some of the struggle? Absolutely, but I think that's not specific to the autism. It's often more specific to
The structures
the
around it.
anxiety, yeah, the
Yeah.
things that cause the anxiety or some of those pressures um, that cause that. I won't
Yeah.
like I won't say it's purely everybody else and the systems because unless I was in a bubble, the sensory world, like the world is still there. It's not entirely the external
Mm-hmm.
systems fault, so to speak. But yeah, there is I it's true, it's not like a coat you can take off. I
Yeah.
think that's what I said once before. And it's also this polarity, or I forget what the word I'm looking for, but there's a creativity and there's a way of looking at the world. And I don't
Yeah.
want to say superpowers and all that nonsense because that's just, I think, ugh.
Yeah.
I
Please don't.
bristle at
Please
that
don't.
language too.
It's like
But
inspiration
it's,
porn. Please don't.
oh, you know what? I think that's, I don't know, parents, people trying to make themselves feel better. I don't know what it is actually. It's just gross.
Yeah.
But it does lend, there's a different way of looking at things. And
Yeah.
it's not the tragedy, it's not the superpower, but there's definitely a unique way that our brains process things that is not all bad. And some employers even like seek it out because it can give us an advantage in some ways. So I was explaining this actually just today with my son. We were chatting about it, saying like this thing called the spiky profile, where, say you do this
Mm-hmm.
testing and like your IQ can be super high or you can score like super high on like pattern recognition, but then your processing speed is like, a 4-year
Yeah.
old or your emotional
Mm-hmm.
regulation is like someone much younger. So it's really spiky. And that's like something you just have to come to terms with.
Yeah.
I love the spikes. I'm grateful for the hyper focus and the things that help me do the creative work that I do. But I
Mm-hmm.
also, it sucks, but I have to accept the things that I can't do as well as the next person. And
Yeah.
that, for all the will in the world and all the 10,000 hours, I will never do. Like I still have a lot of trouble with certain basic adulting things, and it's embarrassing and it's laughable. Um, like if there's some
Yeah.
obvious thing and I do not get the instructions, like it is just
Yeah.
Julie proof. Or like what's common sense in adulting, I often just do not get. But, it swings and roundabouts. There are things that
Yeah.
I can do and I get that other people don't. And it's cool for my son and I when we're on the same page with that. And I said,
Yeah.
you have to really value and appreciate those things, because they do help you suck up the harder things, because the harder
Yeah.
things are always going to be there. I mean, even hopefully the world gets better, but even if the world gets better, essentially there are still going to be things that are harder
Yeah.
for you. And I think that's why, in my mind, it is a disability, not just a difference.
Yeah.
I know that,
Okay.
doesn't make it sweet packaging, but I do
Yeah.
think it can be disabling. And I don't think that even if the world, like, obviously we would love the world to become a less ableist place,
Yeah.
but I think there would still probably be some innate challenges just because of that spikiness.
And this is
Spikiness?
where spikiness, I love it, the spikiness.
Spikiness.
We should put that in the same terminology as like the spoons and the zebras
Yeah,
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
this seems like a great point where this is why diagnosing and or identifying whatever terminologies you're comfortable with, an audience is comfortable with, where this is so integral, because it's not just, oh, this is what I have, here are the treatments, here's what I can do, but it's also like, oh, I am this way because of this. Here's what I can do. Here's how I can perceive my own life. Here's how I can navigate my life. Because it sounds to me like, if you're trying to do something that, that's one of the valleys in your spike, you're beating your head against the wall trying to do this thing. Why can't I do it? Why can't it? Oh, okay. Like, there's an acceptance there, and being able to use your resources, rely on the help that you need, blah blah blah, in order to be able to navigate life. I think like that's probably where healthcare actually needs to step up a little bit.
Yeah,
Better
yeah.
identifiers, diagnostic, abilities, tools that we have are still a little bit lagging, but
Which is true, because when it's a physical disability, it's all very much, we're not saying like, oh,
oh
just
yeah,
try harder, just try
yeah,
harder to see or walk or whatever. But I think
yeah,
with mental health, it's like, well, you're clearly like not resilient enough, or you're not using these
yeah.
tools, or
I hate the word
whatever the
resilient.
case. Yeah.
I hate
Yeah, that's
resilient.
another,
That whole
we could have a
idea.
bingo. Where's our
Okay,
bingo card?
we're gonna
Yeah.
bring you back, and we're just gonna like the
Yeah.
resilience. It's gonna be the resilience
Putting them all
conversation.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but the point is, it's not about, like, as I said before, it's not about having the label. It's about, why have the self-loathing? If you
Yes.
can understand, you know what, I'm not good at math. I'm never going to be good at math. I can be a little bit better at math, but why should
Yeah.
I hate myself because I can't do numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like throwing out the most stupid examples, but you get it. It's,
No, I think that's a fabulous example
yeah.
because that's a tangible example, right?
And
That's
that's
something
what,
that people
because
can
so many people are
understand.
like, why get diagnosed in your 30s or 40s or even 60s or beyond? And
Yeah.
it's not about coveting a label. It's not about attention. It's about trying to not hate yourself and trying to understand and try to be a bit nicer to yourself and understand. And it's nothing to anybody else, whether I
Yeah.
understand myself and like myself better and I move through the world better. Aren't I better placed in the
Yeah.
world if I am not going around hating myself? So
I love that, actually. I think just how you put that there just kind of had like sort of not a mic drop moment, but like a little light bulb. I'm like, oh, she said that so perfectly. Not the diagnosis isn't about, the label or anything. It's about me learning not to hate myself. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well done, Julie. Love it.
that
Last
makes up
question
for my
for
earlier
you.
comment about resilience.
I mean, I still think we should dive into resilience at some point. Maybe I'll see you, or like we can talk later at some point, because resilience, or maybe just write an article on
Ah,
it, like resilience.
yeah.
What do you have something in the works next? Like, are you thinking of another project? What's up for you next?
I have a couple things, actually. I
Ooh.
have another memoir that is complete and looking for a home. Yeah. And
Oh,
I
okay.
have an ancient novel that I'm dredging up as well.
Okay. So
So yeah, it could
editors,
be memoir and fiction.
agents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hit
Yeah.
me up.
Yeah. We got
That's
all
what
of
I
her
say.
details down in the meta.
Uh-huh.
Please hit her up. She's a phenomenal
Yeah.
writer.
Oh, thank
Lots to
you. Thank you.
say. Julie M. Green, thank you so much for being here today. I was so excited for this conversation. I just felt
Ah,
like,
cool. Me too.
Yeah, Motherness, everybody. Motherness, a memoir of generational autism, parenthood, and radical acceptance. Out now. You need to get a copy, get it from indie bookstore. Is it there is an audible an audiobook.
Yeah, it's
UCW does this.
fantastic. I did not record it.
Okay.
However, it is a Canadian autistic woman who is fantastic. It's sh it got the whatever best audible nonfiction of 2025. Yeah, in a
Wow.
category. Yeah, because she did a really, really great job.
Absolutely amazing. Okay, so
So
listen to the book. Libraries are great. Indie bookstores
yes.
always recommended. Yeah,
Hmm.
and thank you again, Julie. I really appreciate
Thank
this
you.
conversation.
It was good to chat with you.
This episode of The Book Hook was hosted and produced by KJ Aiello with video, content, and social media production by Jackie Johnstone. Don't forget to drop a like, a comment, share, and follow. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at handle the book hook _podcast and sign up for our newsletter on Substack.